Zara Kane was picking dandelions behind her grandmother's farmhouse when the sky cracked open like an egg. She looked up just in time to see something metallic and roughly the size of a refrigerator come screaming through the atmosphere, trailing fire and what looked suspiciously like alien curse words written in smoke. The thing crashed into Grandma Kane's prize-winning tomato patch with the subtle grace of a drunk elephant doing ballet. Dirt flew everywhere. The chickens went berserk. And somewhere in the distance, Old Man Peterson's dog started howling like the world was ending. Which, as it turned out, might not have been far from the truth. Zara dropped her handful of weeds and crept closer to the crater, her bare feet finding purchase on the sun-baked earth. The metal thing was roughly humanoid. If humans were made of brushed steel and had glowing blue circuits running under their skin like luminescent veins. Smoke poured from various joints and connection points, and one of its optical sensors flickered weakly. Well, Zara said to nobody in particular, that's not something you see every Tuesday. The robot's head turned toward her voice with a grinding sound that suggested its neck bearings had seen better days. When it spoke, its voice came out like gravel being processed through a blender filled with dignity. Small, human child, it wheezed, blue coolant leaking from what might have been its mouth. Are you going to dissect me? Zara blinked. Do I look like I have dissection equipment on me? I'm 12. The most dangerous thing I own is a really sharp protractor. The robot seemed to consider this. In that case, would you happen to have any motor oil? Or perhaps premium unleaded gasoline? Fresh out. But Grandma's got some sweet tea in the fridge. Svet, yeah. It's basically sugar water with attitude. Might help with the whole dying robot situation you got going on. The robot's optical sensors dimmed and brightened in what Zara interpreted as mechanical confusion. You would help me? Even though I am clearly not of your species? Buddy, you just crash-landed in our tomatoes. The least I can do is offer you refreshments. Meanwhile, approximately 300,000 miles above Earth's surface, Battle Commander Thex Molinar was having what humans might generously call a very bad day. His flagship, the Decimation's Edge, hung in space like a metallic predator, its weapon systems charged and ready to turn the third planet from this unremarkable yellow star into cosmic debris. Commander, his tactical officer, Lieutenant Vex Karan, announced with the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list, Scout Unit Alpha 7 has failed to report in. Last known position was the target planet's northern continent. Thex Molinar drummed his talons against his command chair, the sound echoing through the bridge like metallic rain. His species, the Helixians, had conquered 47 star systems through superior technology, overwhelming numbers, and a complete lack of what humans called chill. They were very good at war, moderately good at logistics, and absolutely terrible at understanding why some species insisted on fighting back instead of just accepting their inevitable subjugation like reasonable beings. Probability assessment, Thex growled, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never been told no and didn't intend to start now. Scout Unit either malfunctioned or encountered unexpected resistance, Vex replied, his four-fingered hands dancing across holographic controls. The humans of this planet appear more resourceful than our initial reconnaissance suggested. Thex's mandibles clicked together in annoyance. The humans were supposed to be easy, primitive, barely worth the energy expenditure of a proper invasion. Their technology was laughably basic, their military forces scattered and uncoordinated, and their planet-side defenses wouldn't stop a determined asteroid, let alone the full might of the Helixian Armada. And yet, somehow, they kept winning. To IT was embarrassing. Professionally and personally embarrassing. Send down a recovery team. Thex ordered. If Alpha 7 is damaged, retrieve it. If it's been captured. He paused, his reptilian features twisting into something that might have been a smile if smiles were designed to give small children nightmares. Well, let's just say the humans will learn why we don't take prisoners. Back on Earth, in the considerably less intimidating setting of a Kansas farmhouse kitchen, Zara was learning that robots were surprisingly chatty when you got them talking. So you were telling me, she said, setting down a glass of sweet tea that the robot couldn't actually drink, but seemed to appreciate anyway, That your people are planning to invade Earth because we are in the way of some kind of space highway? The robot, who had introduced himself as Scout Unit Alpha 7 but preferred to be called Axel because it sounded more approachable, nodded his damaged head. It is not personal, small human. Your species simply occupies real estate that my commanders have deemed strategically valuable. That's the dumbest thing I have ever heard, Zara said, settling cross-legged on the kitchen floor next to the mechanical visitor. And I once watched my cousin try to brush his teeth with peanut butter. I am beginning to suspect you may be correct, Axel admitted, his voice carrying what sounded suspiciously like embarrassment. The more I observe your species, the more I question the wisdom of this endeavor. What do you mean? Axel's optical sensors focused on something beyond the kitchen window, where Grandma Kane was hanging laundry on the line while singing off-key gospel hymns. My people calculate success through efficiency, firepower, and tactical superiority. We do not account for. He paused, searching for words in a language that wasn't designed for the concepts he was trying to express. For stubborn kindness. For the tactical impossibility of creatures who help their enemies when logic dictates they should run. You are not my enemy, Zara pointed out. You are just lost. I am a military reconnaissance unit sent to gather intelligence for the invasion and subjugation of your homeworld. Yeah, but you're doing a really bad job of it. Plus, you said please when you asked for help. Enemies don't usually say please. Axel processed this for several seconds, his internal systems making sounds like a computer trying to divide by zero. This is exactly the kind of behavioral pattern that makes no tactical sense. You should be afraid of me. Should I be? No, I do not believe you should be. Then there we go. Mystery solved. Axel made a sound that might have been laughter if robots knew how to laugh. You are either the wisest being I have ever encountered, or the most dangerously naive. Could be both. I'm multi-talented. Their conversation was interrupted by the distant sound of something large and angry tearing through the atmosphere. Axel's sensors immediately went active, scanning frequencies that human ears couldn't detect. Oh, he said, and there was something in his mechanical voice that made Zara's stomach drop. Oh no. What? Recovery team. 3 units. Full combat configuration. Axel tried to stand, servos whining in protest. You need to hide, small human. You need to hide now. What about you? I am compromised. They will likely terminate me for mission failure. It is standard procedure. Zara looked at this damaged robot who had fallen from space into their tomatoes, who said please and worried about her safety even though his own people were coming to probably kill him, and made a decision that would have horrified any reasonable adult within a 50-mile radius. Like hell they will. I do not understand that expression. It means we're going to figure this out. Together. She stood up, brushing off her shorts with the determined air of someone who had clearly never been in a situation like this before, but was too stubborn to let that stop her. You said your people don't understand humans, right? That appears to be accurate. Then maybe it's time they got an education. Outside, 3 shapes descended from the sky like metallic angels of very specific and unpleasant doom. Unlike Axel, these units were military-grade, designed for combat rather than reconnaissance. Their weapon systems were fully functional, their armor was intact, and their programming contained no subroutines for curiosity, compassion, or the appreciation of sweet tea. They landed in Grandma Kane's front yard with considerably more grace than their predecessor, their optical sensors immediately beginning tactical sweeps of the surrounding area. The lead unit, designated Combat Unit Theta 9, detected the energy signature of their missing scout almost immediately. Target located, Theta 9 announced, its voice carrying the emotional warmth of a tax audit. Initiating recovery protocol. They approached the farmhouse with the methodical precision of beings who had never encountered anything they couldn't either shoot, intimidate, or administratively process into compliance. This was their first mistake. Their second mistake was underestimating a 12-year-old girl with a head full of stubborn determination and absolutely no respect for the established rules of interstellar warfare. Inside the kitchen, Zara was learning that helping damaged alien robots was considerably more complicated than it appeared in movies. "Your people," she said, peering through the curtains at the approaching metal figures. "They are not big on negotiation, are they?" "Negotiation implies the possibility of multiple acceptable outcomes," Axel replied, his damaged servos allowing him to prop himself against the kitchen counter. "My people prefer cleaner solutions." "How clean are we talking?" "They will retrieve me, terminate any witnesses, and sterilize the area to prevent contamination of evidence." Sterilize? Complete molecular disintegration of organic matter within a half-mile radius. Zara stared at him. "That's not clean, that's psychotic. The distinction is largely academic from your current perspective. Not helping, Axel." The front door exploded inward with the kind of force that suggested the visitors hadn't bothered to check if it was unlocked first. Theta 9 stepped through the smoking remains, its optical sensors immediately locking onto Axel's position. "Scout Unit Alpha 7, it announced with all the personality of a particularly stern parking meter. "You have failed to report for scheduled data extraction." "Explain." "I experienced technical difficulties." "Specify." Axel's sensors flickered toward Zara, who was doing her best to look invisible behind the kitchen island. It wasn't working very well, considering the kitchen wasn't exactly designed for 12-year-old stealth operations. Navigation error resulted in unplanned atmospheric entry and catastrophic systems damage, Axel said carefully. "I have been conducting field repairs." "Acceptable. Prepare for data extraction and unit recovery." "And the human witness?" Theta 9's optical sensors swiveled toward Zara with the kind of mechanical precision that suggested this was not going to end well for anyone involved. "Standard witness protocols will be implemented, which are termination." This was the moment when Zara Kane, 12 years old, armed with nothing more dangerous than a really sharp protractor and a head full of righteous indignation, decided that the universe's standard operating procedures were completely unacceptable. "Now hold on, just a minute," she said, stepping out from behind the kitchen island with the kind of fearless stupidity that makes parents go gray prematurely. "You can't just barge into someone's house and start terminating people. That's rude." Theta 9 processed this statement for approximately 0.3 seconds before determining that human concepts of politeness were not relevant to current operational parameters. "Human child," it said, raising one arm that was definitely not designed for high fives. "Your termination will be swift and efficient. Resistance is inadvisable." "Inadvisable," Zara repeated, tasting the word like it was something unpleasant she'd found stuck to her shoe. "You know what I think is inadvisable? Picking a fight with someone who knows where you live." "Clarify." "Oh, I think you know exactly what I mean. The problem with being a highly advanced combat robot designed for maximum efficiency is that your programming doesn't usually include subroutines for dealing with sarcastic pre-teenagers who seem completely unimpressed by your capacity for wholesale destruction." Theta 9 found itself in the unusual position of being confused by a creature that should have been screaming and running by now. "Your threats are meaningless," it announced, though something in its vocal processor suggested it was less certain about this than it would have preferred. "You possess no weapons capable of harming military-grade combat units." "Weapons?" Zara grinned, and there was something in that expression that would have worried anyone who knew her well. "Who said anything about weapons?" She reached into her pocket and pulled out her cell phone, a device that Theta 9 sensors identified as primitive communication technology, roughly equivalent to what the Helixians had been using about 3,000 years ago. Hardly threatening. This was their third mistake. "Grandma," Zara said cheerfully into the phone, "you might want to come inside. We have got company, and they are being incredibly rude about the whole thing." There was a pause. Then, from somewhere deeper in the house, came the sound of footsteps that suggested Grandma Kane was not particularly pleased about whatever was happening in her kitchen. "Zara Marie Kane," came a voice that could have stripped paint off a barn door. "What exactly is going on in my kitchen?" Grandma Kane appeared in the doorway, took one look at the scene, her granddaughter facing down, 3 heavily armed alien robots while a 4th damaged one leaned against her kitchen counter, and did something that would have puzzled xenopsychologists for generations to come. She put her hands on her hips and frowned. "Well," she said, in the tone of voice usually reserved for door-to-door salesmen and politicians, "this is quite a mess, isn't it?" Theta 9's tactical computers immediately began running threat assessment protocols on this new variable. The analysis came back inconclusive, which was impossible. Everything could be categorized, quantified, and assigned a threat level. Everything except, apparently, a 70-year-old woman in a flour-dusted apron who looked like she was considering whether alien robots fell under the same category as muddy boots in her kitchen. "Ma'am," Theta 9 said, because even advanced combat programming included basic protocols for addressing elder humans. "You are advised to evacuate the premises immediately." "Advised by who?" By me. "And you are?" "Combat Unit Theta 9 of the Helixian Expeditionary Force." Grandma Kane nodded thoughtfully, as if this was the kind of introduction she heard every day. "I see. And what exactly are your intentions regarding my granddaughter and her new friend here?" "Standard termination protocols for security purposes." "Termination." Grandma Kane repeated the word like she was tasting something that had gone bad in the refrigerator. "In my kitchen." "Affirmative." "I don't think so." What happened next would be discussed in Helixian military academies for the next several centuries as an example of what happened when you failed to properly assess all variables in a tactical situation. Grandma Kane reached in her apron pocket and pulled out what appeared to be a small wooden object, roughly the size and shape of a pencil. Theta 9 sensors identified it as organic matter, specifically treated wood, with trace elements suggesting it had been exposed to various cooking spices over an extended period than a kitchen utensil. Completely harmless. Then Grandma Kane smiled, and suddenly the kitchen utensil didn't seem nearly as harmless as it had a moment before. "Boys," she said, and somehow made the word sound like a threat, "I think you have overstayed your welcome." What Theta 9 failed to understand about Grandma Kane's wooden kitchen utensil was that it wasn't just any ordinary spoon. It was a family heirloom, passed down through 4 generations of women who had used it to discipline unruly children, stir massive pots of soup for church fundraisers, and on one memorable occasion, knock a rabid raccoon unconscious when it tried to raid the chicken coop. That IT was a spoon with history. A spoon with attitude. A spoon that had seen things. And right now, it was pointed directly at Theta 9's central processing unit, like a wooden sword of domestic justice. "Ma'am," Theta 9 said, its voice processor struggling with concepts that had no tactical equivalent, that implement poses no threat to military-grade armor systems. "Honey," Grandma Kane replied, taking a step forward that somehow managed to be more intimidating than an entire battalion of armed soldiers. "You clearly don't know much about grandmothers." Meanwhile, 300,000 miles above Earth, Commander Thex Molinar was discovering that his bad day was about to become a legendarily terrible day. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Vex Karan, was staring at his sensor readings with the expression of someone who had just realized that mathematics might not work the way he thought it did. "Commander," Vex said slowly, "we are receiving unusual data from the recovery team." "Define unusual." "Their biometric sensors are indicating elevated stress levels, tactical confusion, and what appears to be existential uncertainty." Thex's mandibles clicked together like castanets played by an angry flamenco dancer. "Explain how a combat recovery team experiences existential uncertainty." "I cannot, sir. The phenomenon appears to be unprecedented in our military database." "Show me." The main display shimmered to life, revealing a real-time feed from Theta 9's optical sensors. What Thex saw made his reptilian brain perform the equivalent of a hard reboot. A small human female, elderly by their species standards, was advancing on 3 of the Helixian military's finest combat units while brandishing what appeared to be a primitive eating utensil. The combat units were backing away from a grandmother with a spoon. "Lieutenant," Thex said, his voice carrying the kind of controlled calm that suggested someone was about to have a very unpleasant conversation with their superior officer, "please tell me that our elite combat units are not retreating from a single unarmed civilian." "Well, sir, technically she is armed. With a wooden implement." "A spoon, Vex." It's a spoon. Yes, sir. A very assertive spoon. Back in the kitchen, Grandma Kane was discovering that alien combat robots were surprisingly similar to misbehaving children in that they responded well to firm authority and the implicit threat of immediate consequences. Now then, she said, gesturing with her spoon in a way that made all three combat units flinch simultaneously, let's talk about proper behavior in other people's homes. We do not understand, Theta 9 stammered, its vocal processors struggling with the unprecedented experience of being lectured by someone it was supposed to be terminating. Rule number 1, Grandma Kane continued, counting off on her fingers while keeping the spoon at ready position. You don't break down doors without knocking. Rule number 2, you don't threaten children. Rule number 3, you don't track mud through my kitchen. Theta 9 looked down at its feet, which had indeed left metallic scuff marks on the linoleum. We apologize for the floor damage. That's better. Now, rule number 4, and this is the important one. You don't come into someone's house planning to hurt people and then act surprised when the homeowner objects to your behavior. Zara watched this exchange with the kind of fascination usually reserved for nature documentaries about predators who suddenly discovered they were actually prey. Axel, meanwhile, was running calculations that his military programming insisted should be impossible. Small human, he whispered to Zara, how is your grandmother achieving tactical superiority over units designed for planetary conquest? Grandma raised 6 kids, survived the Great Depression, and once stared down a tornado that was heading for our farm until it changed direction and went around us instead, Zara whispered back. 3 cranky robots don't even make her top 10 list of difficult situations. That explains nothing and everything simultaneously. Welcome to humanity. We specialize in that. The standoff might have continued indefinitely, with Grandma Kane slowly but inexorably asserting domestic authority over increasingly confused alien combat units, if not for the arrival of additional complications in the form of the United States military. The sound of helicopters approaching from the east made everyone in the kitchen look up, except for Grandma Kane, who seemed to take the arrival of military aircraft in her general airspace as just another Tuesday afternoon inconvenience. Oh, wonderful, she muttered. More uninvited guests. Major Rebecca Torres of the 82nd Airborne had been having what she thought was a routine day until the radar stations started reporting unidentified flying objects landing in rural Kansas. Now she was leading a response team to investigate what intelligence insisted was probably just a weather balloon or maybe some kind of experimental aircraft that had wandered off course. Intelligence, as it turned out, had severely underestimated the situation. Eagle 1 to base, she reported through her headset as her helicopter circled the Kane farmhouse. We have visual confirmation of, well, this is going to sound crazy, but we have 3 unidentified mechanical entities in the target zone, along with what appears to be a domestic situation involving civilians. Copy that, Eagle 1. Are the civilians in danger? Major Torres watched through her binoculars as an elderly woman appeared to be giving a stern talking to what looked like robots from a science fiction movie, while a young girl and a 4th damaged robot observed from the sidelines. Negative base. If anything, I think the mechanical entities might be the ones in danger. Repeat that, Eagle 1. The grandmother is winning. Down in the kitchen, the arrival of human military forces was causing Theta 9's tactical computers to have what could only be described as a nervous breakdown. The mission parameters had been simple. Retrieve the damaged scout, eliminate witnesses, sterilize the area. Clean, efficient, by the numbers. Instead, they were trapped in a domestic confrontation with a human female who wielded kitchen utensils like weapons of mass destruction, while human military forces circled overhead and their supposedly damaged scout unit appeared to be engaging in something that looked suspiciously like friendship with the primary witness they were supposed to eliminate. Nothing in Theta 9's programming had prepared it for this scenario. Attention unidentified aircraft, came a voice through external speakers as the helicopters established a perimeter around the farmhouse. This is Major Torres, United States Army. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. Theta 9 looked at its companion units, then at Grandma Kane, then at the spoon that was still pointed in its general direction like a wooden sword of domestic justice. It began, then stopped. We are experiencing technical difficulties. What kind of technical difficulties? We are not certain how to categorize the current situation within our operational parameters. Major Torres had been in the military for 15 years. She had served in 3 combat zones, commanded troops through impossible situations, and once talked a panicked recruit down from a radio tower during a thunderstorm. She thought she had seen everything. She had not seen anything like this. "Are you requesting assistance?" There was a long pause. Then, in a voice that sounded suspiciously like someone swallowing their pride, Theta 9 replied, "Yes, we believe we may require guidance." And that was how the first official diplomatic contact between humanity and the Helixian Empire began, not with grand pronouncements or formal ceremonies, but with a grandmother, a wooden spoon, and 3 very confused alien combat robots asking for help in understanding basic social etiquette. Commander Thex Molinar, watching this unfold from his flagship, realized that his species might have fundamentally misunderstood something important about humans. They had assumed that Earth's inhabitants were just another primitive species to be conquered and cataloged. They had not considered the possibility that humans might be something entirely different, something dangerous. Not because of their weapons or their technology, but because of their complete refusal to behave in any way that made tactical sense. "Lieutenant," he said slowly, "cancel the invasion order." "Sir, cancel it. All of it. Recall all units, stand down all battle groups, and send a priority message to High Command." "What message, sir?" Thex watched as Major Torres's helicopter landed in the farmhouse yard. As human soldiers approached the scene with weapons lowered in a gesture that his species would have interpreted as either supreme confidence or complete insanity. As Grandma, Kane somehow managed to orchestrate what appeared to be an impromptu peace negotiation using nothing more than common sense and a wooden spoon. "Tell them," he said, "that we have encountered a species that weaponizes hospitality and uses grandmothers as tactical assets. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact and cultural exchange programs." "Cultural exchange programs, sir?" "We clearly have much to learn." 3 hours later, Zara Kane found herself sitting at her grandmother's kitchen table, sharing sweet tea with an alien robot, a United States Army major, and 3 very apologetic combat units who had been convinced to power down their weapons systems and engage in what Grandma Kane called civilized conversation. "So let me get this straight," Major Torres said, reviewing her notes with the expression of someone who knew her report was going to be filed under things that should be impossible but apparently aren't. "Your people were planning to invade Earth because we're in the way of a hyperspace shipping route." "That is a simplified but accurate assessment," Axel confirmed, his damaged sensors flickering as he tried to explain interstellar politics to beings who had never left their own solar system. "The Galactic Commerce Guild requires clear transit corridors for efficient cargo movement. Inhabited systems that refuse to relocate are typically cleared through military action. And you thought we'd just pack up and move?" Zara asked. "Previous species have found relocation preferable to termination," Theta 9 admitted, its voice carrying what might have been embarrassment if robots could feel embarrassed. "Previous species," Grandma Kane observed, refilling everyone's glasses with the kind of automatic hospitality that had apparently redefined interstellar diplomacy, "probably didn't have grandmothers." "We are beginning to understand this," Theta 9 said. "Our tactical databases contain no references to grandmother-class defensive units." "That's because we are not defensive units," Grandma Kane replied with a smile that could have powered a small city. "We are just people who don't like bullies." Major Torres looked up from her notes. "And your command structure is willing to call off the entire invasion based on this encounter. Commander Thex Molinar has requested immediate diplomatic contact with your governmental authorities," Theta 9 confirmed. "He has also asked if it would be possible to enroll some of our officers in what he called humanity lessons." "Humanity lessons?" "We appear to have significant gaps in our understanding of human behavioral patterns," Axel explained. "For instance, tactical logic suggests that when faced with superior firepower, intelligent beings should either surrender or flee. Instead, Small human Zara offered me refreshments and assistance. And when confronted with trained military units, Theta 9 added, elderly human grandma, Kane established tactical superiority using a wooden spoon. It's not about the spoon, Zara said, grinning. It's about the attitude behind the spoon. We do not understand this concept. That's okay, Grandma Kane said, standing up to check on the pot roast that had been cooking throughout this entire crisis because dinner didn't stop for alien invasions. You will learn, and you're welcome to stay for supper if you'd like. There's plenty. Theta 9's optical sensors focused on this new development with the kind of intense attention usually reserved for analyzing enemy battle formations. You would share your food with us? Even though we came here to terminate you. Honey, you apologized. You are learning to behave properly, and you are clearly far from home, Grandma Kane replied, as if offering dinner to alien combat robots was the most natural thing in the world. Of course you are welcome at my table. This is... Theta 9 processed this statement for several seconds. This is unprecedented. No, Zara said, watching as her grandmother began setting additional places at the table for their unexpected guests. This is just how we do things here. And that was how humanity avoided an interstellar war, not through superior weapons or military strategy, but through the simple revolutionary concept of treating strangers like people instead of problems. 6 months later, the Helixian Empire had established formal diplomatic relations with Earth, complete with cultural exchange programs and a new hyperspace shipping route that went around the solar system instead of through it. Commander Thex Molinar had been promoted to ambassador and was currently enrolled in what had become known throughout the galaxy as the Grandmother Protocol, a diplomatic training program that taught alien species how to recognize and respond appropriately to humanity's most powerful defensive systems, namely hospitality, common sense, and the unstoppable force that was human stubbornness when applied to protecting the things they cared about. Axel had requested permission to remain on Earth as a cultural liaison, a position that mostly involved helping Zara with her science homework and learning to appreciate the tactical applications of sweet tea. His official reports back to the Helixian fleet had become required reading at military academies across 3-star systems, primarily for their detailed analysis of why conventional invasion strategies failed catastrophically when applied to species that responded to threats by offering snacks. And Grandma Kane's wooden spoon had been quietly added to the galactic archives as the first officially recognized diplomatic weapon in interstellar history. You know, Zara said one evening as she and Axel sat on the porch watching the sunset, while 3 former combat units helped Grandma Kane weed her garden, I bet there are lots of other species out there who could use some humanity lessons. Indeed, Axel replied, his optical sensors focusing on the peaceful domestic scene before them. Perhaps it is time for humans to begin their own cultural exchange programs. Road trip. And somewhere in the distance, Old Man Peterson's dog started barking again, though this time it sounded suspiciously like laughter.